All right, for this step, we have got the essential details in the house laid in. I do want to go ahead and show you how to evaluate a painting and what to do last. Sometimes those last steps are the most crucial ones in terms of tying a painting together. So I wanted to go over that process in a bigger way first, and then I'll show you where we're going to go with this.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to 3 Point Perspective, the podcast about illustration, how to do it, how to make a living at it, and how to make an impact in the world with your art. I'm Jake Parker.
I'm Lee White.
And I'm Will Terry. And all three of us are professional illustrators. We've all worked for all the major publishers in the business. Together, we published somewhere around 75 children's books, and we've all taught illustration at university art schools.
That is right. Each week, we come at you guys with fantastic illustrator interviews or questions from people just like you. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we argue, but each time you learn something, brand spanking new.
I've decided I don't want to argue anymore.
I only want to argue, though, so.
Will you two just quit arguing about that? Will is about to tell us, give us a hot update on shipping out 700 packages for his Kickstarter. And a little tease here, he teased us. He said we got in trouble at the post office. So please tell us what happened.
Yeah. So,
but don't go on too long.
Yeah, abbreviate, bro.
Real quick. Yeah, we took. I took a first batch of packages, about 300 over on last Saturday, about a week, a little less than a week ago. Anyway, I take them in there, and the lady goes, "Who are you?" And I'm like, I'm a guy dropping off packages, kind of a thing, And I'm in the bulk. I'm in the right spot. I'm in behind the post office in the bulk where you drop everything off and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, "Yeah, but who's this for?" I'm like, "It's my company. We're just a startup. We're brand new." And she's like, "Yeah, but like, and she's like, "Okay, well then, put them in the bins here, And it's just weirdness, Like,
yeah, she seems like she's fishing for something.
Yeah. So then I'm unloading the truck, and there was a lot. The truck bed was pretty much almost full.
Yeah.
And I'm unloading in these bins, and she comes back out, and she goes, "Is this you?" And she's got like a laminated picture of a guy with dropping off a bunch of packages, and at the top in big like Sharpie it says "Do not accept packages from," and then it's got like some type and everything on there.
And it's your face.
It's not, no.
And it's Lee playing a prank on you.
My face. And it didn't have a close-up picture of the guy. He was at a distance. It had a picture of the packages.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "No." And she's like, "You don't work for this person." But anyway, this interrogation thing. "Let me get a copy of your driver's license and stuff." So I didn't ask because I'm like, this I probably should have asked, but somebody did something nefarious, and now they're like all worried that because I didn't have a relationship with them. I'm not like a lot of businesses are constantly dropping off packages, and they're used to seeing you, and the name Wonky Penguin on there, didn't help.
No,
she's like, "What is this Wonky Penguin thing?" So then that worked out. Those packages went out.
You went full penguin?
I went full penguin.
I'm going full penguin here, lady. Get off my back.
That's what we chose to call our LLC. It was Wonky Penguin LLC. So it's funny because when I go to the bank and I talk to a new banker, they're like, "What? I gotta ask, what do you guys do? What is Wonky Penguin?" It's pretty cool. It's a good conversation starter.
Yeah, there's actually just a little side trail right here, but there's a cosmetic company called Drunk Elephant. I don't know if you've heard of it, seen it, but it's super successful. And I listened to an interview with her. It was like a startup interview, like how she built her company. And she's like, and it's all based on this natural stuff and has to do with these elephants in Africa that get drunk on this like fruit that goes bad, what's it called when fruit goes fermented? Yeah. Fermented fruit. They'll eat it up, and then the elephants are tripping all over the place. So she's like, let's call it Drunk Elephant. And she said that a key, not entirely, she has a good product, but the reason it really stuck around and stuck in people's mind because the name was so weird and so wild. And there's so many people that were like, you got to change the name. You got to change, like advisors and investors and things like that.
The corporate.
And she's like, no way, we're sticking with it.
Yeah, the MBAs, it screws with their brain. Lululemon. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
So we take the second batch of 700 games a few days ago, and now it's a whole different thing. It's like, and you've probably heard of this, you guys. They're like, where's your manifest? Well, first off, we use the wrong bins. So there's like all these different carts on wheels that you can use. Mm-hmm. At our post office, don't use the orange ones. Like they're going. Oh, you're not supposed to use these. Why did you use these? And we're like, well, we're new. We don't know what we're doing. And they're like, oh, and we're like, well, tell us what bin you want us to use, and we'll take them out and put them in the other bin.
Too late.
And they're like, no, it's okay. But man, you shouldn't use these. The postal carriers use those, and they're going to get really mad because there's not enough of them. And now there's really not enough. And we're like, we can fix this for you. We're here. They're like, no. So that happened. And then they're like, well, where's your manifest? And here's what's weird. So you know what the manifest is?
No.
So when you have that many packages that are all like, we bought all the labels, they're ready to scan, right?
Oh yeah, it's like the end of day sheet that you print out.
Will print out, and then they can scan the sheet, and it basically says all these packages are in our system. So I don't have to scan each one individually.
Yeah.
Okay, but here's my thing, right? This is where my brain goes. If I take them in the front door, like one or two of those packages, the price accounts for them hand scanning that package, dealing with it, right? Well, they're actually making more money if I take 700 that all they have to do is go through. And I get the manifest will make it easier for them. But for them to be like upset about it, it's like, number one, I didn't bring them in the front door and make you handle each one. And with a hand addressed thing, it's labeled, it's ready to scan. Not good enough. So they were nice. I mean, I don't want to paint them too bad, but the first lady was really nice. And the second one was like, you got to have a manifest. Like, it's so easy to just print that off. Why don't you do that? Why didn't you do it?
I'm shaking my head here because we should have had a conversation, Will, before you did all this. So here's what you do, because you need to be allies with the post office, not enemies with the post office.
I know. That's why we were really nice.
Yeah, but
I don't want to throw my packages in the trash.
But it starts here. It starts with a phone call. Hey, this is Will Terry. I'm a small business owner in the area. We've got a large shipment of packages coming through, probably 1,500. And I know you're a small post office. I'm just want to know, like, what's the best way to go about this with you guys? And they'll be like, oh, let me hand you over to our specialist on that. We'll take good care of you, right? And then they'll say, okay, here's what you do. Don't come in through the front. Come around to the back. Don't put them in the orange bins. We'll have bags for you to bring them in. And make sure you give us a manifest. And then everything's good. Everyone's happy. You show up and they're not like, who are you? What's going on?
Now, did you ever screw this up, or did you do the call first?
So my very first Kickstarter back in 2013, Allison was like, don't worry about the shipping stuff. I'll handle it, Jake. And she called and said, what the heck do I do? What do we do here? And they gave her that. And so we just kind of, and we've moved and we've used different post offices, and every post office operates a little bit different. They're all like, they've all been doing it their way in that particular branch or whatever for years, even though that's all, overseen by the USPS. They all are shaped different. They're laid out different. They have different kinds of, traffic that comes through. And so every post office, you just have to be like, hey, how do you guys operate? Because I thought, oh, if this is how we do it here, this is how they do it at the other place. And so shifting to the other place, I was doing the stuff I was doing in the last place. And they're like, whoa, what's going on here? And so then we just figured out, okay, you have to like go in and ask every time if you're using a new post office, and be their friends and smile at them. You can't like, I think it's against the law to actually give them gifts or like, cause I was like Christmas time, I was like, I'm going to give them some chocolates, cause they're always like dealing with my packages.
Right.
But I think that's like kind of
It's like bribery.
Like, hey, you know, so I just be cool with them. That's all.
I did have one triumph.
What's that?
When she was telling me how, you know, how batshit, she's a little bit crazy. the postal guy, like she kept going on about how crazy they're going to get if they don't have their bins out there. And I stopped myself from saying, you mean they're going to go postal?
Yes. Do you know that when I was living in Tennessee, the mail place, their independent mail shop there in my neighborhood, the name of that company was Going Postal. I couldn't believe it. When we saw it, we could not. I was like, do you know where that phrase comes from?
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know. I wonder if it's one of those phrases that's lost its meaning over the year.
obviously it has. So
Yeah.
But it hit my brain and I redirected it into the bin. So
Next time someone at the post office says, "Who are you?" I want you to say, "I'm Mother effing Will Terry." Don't you listen to 3 Point Perspective?
I'm Will Terry.
And then throw them a 3 Point Perspective CD and say, "Put this in your CD player." All right, we got next item of business. We wanted a little bit of a topic of discussion here that we were talking about before, and that is product stacking. Don't get afraid of that weird sounding. Like, product stacking isn't as complicated as it may sound. But Lee, you want to jump in and tell us what your thoughts are on product stacking, because we've all done this type of thing, and it's I think a key component to like self-employed illustrator success.
Right.
If you're wanting to be a little bit more entrepreneurial. So yeah, go for it.
right. I mean, it's really about stepping out of your own artwork creation mode and then looking at it from the 10,000 foot view and saying, okay, I made this body of work, or I made this kind of work. Where does it go? I mean, say you're making images for your portfolio. That's where it always starts, right?
Yeah.
Because that's where most people are in their career. Is like, I need to build a new portfolio, or I need to change it, or that you're interested in new direction. So long story short, you got to make a series of images, and hopefully those images are going to tie together in some way. Well, the next question would be, other than the portfolio, what comes next for those images? I mean, are they going to be, could you sell them as prints? That's where I instantly go. If they are going to be prints, where can you sell the prints? And then could you also take them, depending on the subject matter, and turn them into cards? And then if they work well as prints and cards, could you group them together and make a calendar? And so I do this a lot, and it's amazing how many uses a singular image or a series of images can have. I mean, all the way up to all these different kind of models. Like, for example, I'm over the past 6 months since I took that watercolor workshop in June, I really dove in because I want to learn watercolor in a better way than I knew how. And so I started making just a ton of images. They're not illustrations per se, and I'm just basically using architecture as a subject matter to paint something, because illustration's hard, right? You got to come up with a character, and what's the character doing, the story, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And that's not my concern right now. So I'm just worried about, how do I paint well where I know what I'm doing? That was my original goal. And I wasn't even going to do anything with these. I wasn't even going to show them. I'm just trying to learn how to paint better. And so once I got enough of them together, I started sort of doing that 10,000 foot view, looking around. And I started thinking, well, not only the first thing is I learned how to paint really a lot better in watercolor. Okay, the next thing is, well, I can teach these techniques that I've learned. So that's when I started thinking of workshops. So I did the workshop in October. All of a sudden, looking at now, I've done a workshop, and now I have these sort of travel-based images, buildings, boats, and, whatever, are, almost like travel sketches sort of thing, but a little more finished.
Can I interrupt you 1 second there?
Yeah.
You have leveled up so much in this last year with your watercolors that you've been doing.
Oh,
I remember
thanks.
when I saw the first sort of new Lee White art that you were putting out, and the one that really like made me double take was the little, like, the door wall, the door in the wall with the bike leaning up against the wall and the sunlight coming through and dappling.
Right here.
Yeah.
This one.
Yeah.
Right
When I saw that one, I was like, wait, you did that? Lee White did that?
This is from the workshop. So that's one of the images that's in the workshop. So get this. So this was when I originally did it. This isn't the original one. This is one that I did for the workshop that I for the SVS.
Yeah, the original one has a full blue door, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, I mean it's similar. I mean I'm using that one as a guide for this one, but this was painted in 20 minutes.
Oh wow!
So, and that was my goal, and that's what I did for the workshop. Is I set a timer and nailed it. I wanted to do a full painting and show how fast you can do it if you have all the steps down.
Right.
So fully finished painting in 20 minutes. Not bad. But anyway, so I have all the images like that. And the reason that I did that image in particular is because it was flat and it saves in other words, you're looking at a flat wall. I'm not looking at a perspective or an alleyway where you have to paint perspective and all that stuff. It's literally just a flat colors, right? Mm-hmm. So I've got all these images and I've done this workshop. So then I start thinking, well, hey, I could do that. I could combine those two things. I love travel and I love painting and I love teaching. And so then I started talking to Uptrek, which that's a travel art group. And now I'm doing a workshop in Spain in October 20th through 27th. And then, so I'm taking all those images now and making them, I'm using them obviously as imagery for the workshops, but then I'm also selling them as prints and I've started, selling that stuff. So it's just one thing after the other. You can start stacking all this stuff together and really seeing, where it can go. And so, I did that with the tarot deck too. It's like it shouldn't just be the one product. It becomes prints, it becomes cards. And now I'm going to take some of those images I made for the tarot deck and I'm painting them in watercolor now because I understand it so much better. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be the images, both the travel stuff and the tarot stuff is going to be the images I use for my art fairs this summer.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah.
So I'm using my own work that was made, some of it made digitally as master copies in traditional media. So I don't have to come up with new images. I've already come up with all these images.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's incredible. And I was like, even though your sort of throwaway tests that you were doing, like those are perfect for a greeting card.
Yeah. They're so small. They're already that scale anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they're tiny and I've done a ton. I've done so many. I mean, like even some of the demos I was doing for the workshop, I would do 2 and 3 times just because I'm trying to really nail not just what the image looked like, but how I teach it. And, but yeah, so I've got hundreds of, I mean, if I look around the studio, they're all over the place.
Send me one.
Heck no, $500, bro.
Trying to get Will to send me one of his card games and Lee to send me an original piece of art.
But anyway, it's fun. So you start thinking of I guess long story short, as you look around and you think of the things you're interested in, not just for illustration, but like for me, that became, I really do want to get out of the studio and I want to be out in the world. I want to be around people and I want to be painting in real media. And so that was the driver, but that's the big picture thing. But then all of a sudden you start seeing all the places that all these things go. And not only am I more prolific right now than I've been in a long, long, long time, but I'm happier. I like the work. I like doing the work, I guess.
Yeah. Well, that was one of my big things from talking to James Gurney was the dude is in his late 60s and he is still going strong. Like he's still learning. He's still putting out books. He's still doing conventions and expos or whatever. And I just love that this thing that we've chosen to do with our lives, make art, is something that you never really arrive at and you just embrace that there's always going to be something new to learn and something new to like engage you.
And you're not waiting for retirement. You're not like going, I'll be happy when.
Yeah.
There's so many people that are in jobs that they're just counting down, you know.
Yeah.
We've got friends here that live here in our community that have bought their house here for retirement, and they still have 5 more years to work. And they're just focused on getting, they can't wait to, like, they're trying to figure out ways to early retire from their job.
So a lot of people lose their health after they retire. They just sort of go downhill. It's weird.
I know a handful of doctors and I was just thinking about how stressed out they always are. They're getting, compensated well for their work, but I'm like, there's one in particular though, that he really has, I think, like the perfect work-life balance. But, anyways, I just am really happy that I chose this profession that I'm in, even though it has its ups and downs. And there's the lean years and there's the abundant years and whatnot. But overall, it's been a pretty good ride, for sure.
Do you product stack too? Going back to our topic.
Do I do what?
Product stack when you're thinking.
Do you hang out and just product stack sometimes?
Dude, what are you doing right now, Jake? Oh, I wish I could talk. I can't. I'm product stacking.
But like you just did the comics workshop. Now, is that does that bleed out into anything else, or is that standalone?
So I think I made a YouTube video, or maybe we did a podcast episode years ago, where I was like, every illustration has a possibility of 9 lives, right? And it could be, and this kind of goes right along with what you're saying, is that if you make an illustration, you can be recording the making of that illustration, and now you've got content that you can post on social media in order to get more views, more people interested in your work. But then you can like do the YouTube version, the long form version, and you can do like the cut up short form version, right? So it's like two lives of this piece of artwork. And then depending on the artwork that it is, it could be a print, like you were saying. It could be concept art for a larger, bigger project. It could be any sort of, you could take an element from it and make it a sticker. You could take an element from it and turn that into, slap it on any sort of merch, shirts, mugs, or whatever, if it's cool enough. Especially if you're like developing your own IP and you're building up like a brand identity around your own IP. Like, it's cool to have some of that stuff that people can be like, oh, I like this character. I like how they look, and I want to support you and put this thing on, I want to have this keychain or whatever.
Right.
And then you could sell the original art. So that's another life of it.
That's one reason to work traditionally, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It opens up a lot. I mean, once you can start selling the originals, the income just goes up. I mean, you can license that stuff too, because typically if something's a print, it's going to be generic enough to where it can be used in multiple places. So
licensing is another good one. And then it's a portfolio piece. So you can throw it up on your website and have it be part of your portfolio. So like everything that you do, don't just think it's a one and done and it's, off your plate. Like there's ways to leverage all this artwork that you're making. So like my robots books and my spaceships books, I was doing these like one-off little drawings, kind of like concept art drawings of spaceships and robots. And I had so many of them. I was like, well, let's combine these all into one thing and make a book about it. Mm-hmm. And I already had art that could be made into stickers to like go with the book as like an add-on if I wanted to do a Kickstarter or in the shop or something like that. And then the book itself could be sold as like a PDF download, so I don't have to ship anything, or it could be, an actual printed thing as well. So like, there's just, if you get creative, there's really no end to the things that you can be doing. I recently did a freelance job for a client, and this guy, I met him many, many years ago. He was dating this girl I went to high school with, and I met him through that. And, we knew of each other and we'd bump into each other from time to time, but never really like made friends or anything like that. And then life, we separate, like everybody goes down their different paths. And for the last 30 years, never even spoke to him once. Right. And then in November, I went to my high school reunion, my 30th high school reunion, which makes me sound so old.
Geezer.
Can't believe it.
Geezer.
Anyway, and I bump into this girl I knew, and she's like, "What have you been up to? How's it going?" And I'm just telling her, "Yeah, I got this school and SVSLEARN, and we're teaching people how to become illustrators, and it's really cool. And we're just launching this new website, and we've got this great community of artists, and everybody's like getting along great on there and sharing their artwork." And she's like, "Oh, this is so cool." And I said, "And I do comics and graphic novels, and I've been drawing." And she's like, "Oh my gosh!" And every time I said something, she's like, "I got to introduce you to my husband. I got to introduce you to my husband." And it turns out her husband is that guy she was dating in high school. And so I meet him,
Wow.
and he's like, "Yeah, I am putting out an album." Long story short, after we went, we talked to each other. I met him for lunch. I went and spoke at he has like a mastermind group that he organizes. And he's like, "We're always looking for interesting people to come talk to us." So I went and spoke at his thing. And then he's like, "Hey, I am putting out an album. Would you like to illustrate the cover?" Right.
Oh, wow.
So I was like,
Album of
"Shoot,
what?
yeah." He's a musician as well.
Okay.
Like he's had like, I mean, I don't know anybody anymore who does one thing their entire life, right? So he's had a couple of different lives, but all through all of it, he's been playing guitar and singing and stuff like that. And now he's at the point where he can take a step back from other stuff and actually focus on his music and put out an album. And thinking of product stacking, I was like, well, I could just do this digitally, no problem, and bust it out. But I really want him to have something like that he could frame and put on his wall, that he could like really, his music is very much, it's not hyper produced. It's singing and a guitar, backup drums. He's got a saxophone player. Like it's really, really acoustic almost kind of stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So I was like, he's going to want an original piece of art. So instead of going digital, I made sure I inked the drawing on some really nice paper, and I did a really good job on it. And then I finished coloring it digitally, and I made him a nice high quality print. And I put the print and the paper together, when I went to deliver it to him. And he was just blown away. He's like, "Oh my gosh, like this original looks so good." He didn't realize that I was like doing that. So oftentimes when a client hires you, they just want like the thing. They just want the album cover, not necessarily extra stuff to go along with it. But I went and delivered that to him, and he's like, "Whoa, what should I do? What should I do with this?" And I was like, "You're going to be selling records at your shows. Do a limited edition 100 print run of the album cover with the art, uncolored, just the inks with the raw pencils on there." Mm-hmm. And he was like, "Oh my gosh, that's such a good idea." You have them signed, and it's for like the uber fan, the super fan. And so like I was explaining to him, not that he didn't need me to explain it. Like he's definitely has his head like on straight when it comes to marketing and figuring out revenue streams and stuff like that. But I was just, from my perspective, like, here's something you could do that maybe you didn't think of. And it was, again, another level of product stacking. So there's always, especially when it comes to the creative arts and musicians and film directors and screenwriters and comic artists and watercolorists and game makers, all of these people who do this stuff, there's so many opportunities that you have to really
you want to hear some cool unorthodox product stacking?
Yeah, when you put it that way, definitely.
Well, once I realized I had all these travel images, and then I'm doing this workshop in Spain, and things are starting to be organized in a way where it looks like I know what I'm doing, but
Yeah.
I actually don't. And then I came across this ad it was actually started on Instagram, because I'm looking at all this watercolor stuff and I'm posting all this watercolor stuff. This Italian paint manufacturer called A Gallo, very small handmade batches of paint, very, very high end, very boutique kind of thing. Matter of fact, they just run out of like they announce that they have a batch done, everybody orders it, and then you can't get it anymore.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
It's really cool. Yeah. I mean, much different than like say Winsor Newton or something that has, billions of dollars, I guess. Anyway, so I reached out to them because their stuff is really expensive and it's hard to get. And I said, hey, I'm a watercolorist. Here's some of my images. I'm doing a workshop in Spain. I'm doing a workshop for SVS, and all this. I just pitched them. And I said, I'd love to recommend, I'm putting together a material sheet. I'd love to recommend your products. But I don't know what your product, how they are. So I'd like some. And they wrote back, said, oh, that sounds great. What do you want? So I put together this huge order, and I'm like, okay, if they give me a 10th of that, I would be happy. And I just got the box in the mail yesterday. They gave me everything. And so I'm doing I'm going to do a video of the unwrapping of that stuff. So just, it just adds to it. And then I'll try to figure out something to leverage that to something. And so it's just, once you get comfortable thinking that way, it becomes easy because you can be inclusive to other people and other industries and other businesses. And so that's what I say is like, try to team up once you're more powerful in numbers than you are by yourself.
Yeah. And the other thing too, can I interject
go ahead.
something? I was just listening to a marketing video. I don't know why that popped up into my feed, but I was like, yeah, let's hear. I think I've been listening to, how YouTube works. You watch one or two videos about a subject matter, and now it's like feeding you stuff. And this guy was saying like the future of marketing is changing to where brands don't want to essentially necessarily work with someone who has 500,000, 1 million, 2 million followers on Instagram, because their community is so diverse and too big to feel like targeted, right? And so they're actually looking for people who have 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 followers on Instagram to be their advertisers, like their spokesperson type of thing.
More of them rather than fewer, probably.
Yeah, instead of putting all their money into one, they'll send out free product to 100 different people who have smaller followings, and they have been getting a much better return on their investment that way. So, it's a good time if you don't have a huge following. It's a good time to kind of see if that is something you want to like leverage. Might be a good time to reach out and just like what Lee said, pitch it to them. Just say like, hey, you guys make some cool stuff, and I want to work with you.
Well, one thing I was thinking, it was the three of us are pretty established with our art skill level and style, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we're very comfortable. We're also very comfortable making our own products and getting as many lives out of our art as we can.
Mm-hmm.
But to the person who's more in the beginning of their career, I'm wondering if we can lay out like a hierarchy of what people should work on first, second, and third, because I think it could be intimidating to someone who's just trying to figure out how to draw.
If you're still working on the first portfolio, then the portfolio needs to be good. It doesn't need to be added to all this stuff, because you can't. Yeah, you got to get good to where you're starting to get opportunities that you can pair. Like will people buy the work in whatever genre you want to be in? That's always step one, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Got to have a killer portfolio. And the way your portfolio is at that professional level, or at that level that you can be getting work, is if you are people are reaching out saying, hey, can you do a project for me? Can you do something for me? That, people don't reach out to someone who's doing subpar work. So if you're posting online and you're getting really positive feedback from everybody instead of crickets, that's another good way to know that you're going in the right direction. If you show it to a professional like one of us and we're like, hey, this is really good, how come you're not getting any work? then you need to be doing a little bit more to market yourself out there.
Right.
But until those things start happening, chances are you just really need to dial it in and make some calling cards. We call these portfolio pieces, but actually make it a calling card. A calling card is something that gets passed around, gets sent to other people, that people are like, hey, check out this thing this person did. This is really cool. And so think of it that way. Like if you've ever been sort of stopped in your tracks by an illustration, even briefly, and you're like, oh, that's really cool. I have to comment on it. What was it that made you want to do that about that piece?
Mm-hmm.
And then hold that up to your own personal portfolio and say, does any of my artwork reach this level? Does this fit well in this area? And that's a way to really self-evaluate that. So that's level 1. What would level 2 be?
Well, I think even going back to level 1, you can do what we're talking about, but it's just at a different scale. So, for example, if you're putting your portfolio together, a series of images together, is there a place all of a sudden that group can go to where it forwards your goals? Like going to a portfolio showcase, for example, at SCBWI winter or summer conference is a way that a ton of people get discovered.
Mm-hmm.
So, where are you going to show this work that goes together? That's sort of how it gets product stacked. And like you said, you pick the best one and then make that into a postcard that then goes out. And so it's still a smaller sort of world, but you are using those images in different, and, you make that image into a mailer. It doesn't just exist, just on your website.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's cool. I think your next phase is going to be try to throw yourself out there into the world of like the world of product making, I guess. Like do put together an art book or a collection of sketches and see how that goes. And it could be just a PDF download, but if you sell 100 of them, that's a really good marker that you're going in the right direction.
And it
right?
can be as small as something that's the binding is stapled.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be. It could be a little mini booklet, which is what a lot of artists do. It could be, there's a lot of different things that you could do. You could do a mini comic. You could do a web comic. You could do greeting cards, but just trying and being in that mindset. And I've been surprised at how many of my students that I used to have at UVU were doing those things as students. The thing that you don't want to do is invest a lot of money up front, printing
Too early.
Too many copies that you can't sell.
Right. Yeah.
So that's a thing you got to really be careful, and just know that your work is going to get better and better and better. But I could show you that, guys, this one thing, like for the Pickleball Pulse series that I did, I wanted to make a poster,
Mm-hmm.
so I made this folded poster that goes,
It's so good.
Goes with the book, but also I used that same illustration in the book. So it was planned to use a cropped version of that illustration inside the book.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And that's 2 lives right there. So I was able to maximize there, and just when you change your mindset there, it just opens up so many more options for making money, which is the toughest thing to do in this business, is to make enough
Mm-hmm.
to where you can support yourself and your family. So anything that you can do that's like that wasn't hard to make a poster that was also a spread in the book. It just really wasn't hard. It just took a little bit of planning, and then I don't have to. There's a spread I didn't have to do in the book because it was already done for the poster.
Right. Yep. Yeah.
Hey, can I pitch my, since we're talking about product stacking, can I pitch, when does this episode air?
April 1st, I think.
Oh, well then I gotta pitch my watercolor workshop. Like I was
Yeah.
gonna pitch my Spain workshop, but that's in October. So I'm running a 2-week watercolor workshop. Starts April 5th, and it is geared for beginning and intermediate watercolorists. It lasts 2 weeks. It's interactive, so I'm going to be live with you guys for 7 different days where we're going over the work, and then the videos are available for you guys for a while to learn the skills and techniques and which products to use and how to use them. So
Yep.
sign up, SVS
Yep.
Learn.
I'll piggyback on that and say a month from now is the start of Graphic Novel Pro, which is this big 10-week flagship course that we've been working on for years now and talking about for years.
Yep.
And I've teamed up with Sean Crystal, comic book artist from like Marvel and DC. And I'm sort of on this publishing side, and we're combining our comics knowledge to bring you everything you need to know to get up to speed on how to make comics in a professional way for today's market, right? So
Man, we've been busy, huh?
busy.
It's crazy how much
Yeah.
we've been doing.
Well, let's get to some questions.
Yep.
Shall we? First question comes in from Javier, and he says, subject titled "Breaking into Publishing." How do illustrators usually start publishing in this industry? Is it better to begin by working independently with publishers, and then once you have more recognition, transition to working with an agent? And they want to know if there's another option to doing that. Like, what's the best way to break in this day and age? I'll tell you what I think. And just from my experience and talking to my particular agent, the way the publishing world is sort of running right now is most of these publishers are only accepting agent submissions. So they're not looking at independent, most of the major publishers, right? So I think your first step is, like we said before, make a killer portfolio. Like, make something that looks really good and is contemporary and looks like you know what you're doing. Put together a few illustrations specifically designed to go, like, to say, like, I'm the type of illustrator that does this kind of children's book. So a few illustrations that are really focused on maybe a particular story. Maybe you have an idea for a book. You could put together a book proposal. But the point is whether you want to write and tell your own, write and illustrate your own stories, or just illustrate, you have to put together a little package that just sells yourself as what you do, and then go contact agents and go to their websites, look at their submissions pages, and see what the guidelines are, and then follow those guidelines, because all of them have a little bit different guidelines for their submissions, and you're just going to want to like pay attention to that. You know, if they say please only send 5 images and you send 10, you're probably going in the bin, unless your images are like killer. But the people are so busy and there's so much competition now that an agent can say no to someone that they feel is just going to be hard to work with, who doesn't like pay attention and doesn't do things. So you want to be respectful of that, and then wait for the rejections and wait for those 1 or 2 yeses that come in, and start going down that path. Now, that doesn't say, and you guys can interject at any point here, but that doesn't say you can't still reach out to art directors and editors just to get on their radar as well, because there is a chance that they might be like, oh, we want to add you to our thing, and they might ask who represents you. And if that's the case, I would still get an agent, because they just know the business, and it's changing and shifting so much every year as there's mergers and acquisitions and people leaving and going to other publishers and just weird stuff happening all the time, that an agent is going to be able to stay on top of all of that so that you can focus on your art.
I think it's similar. There's a lot of parallels to someone becoming an actor. But I don't think, to me, maybe it's because I don't act, but it seems like it'd be easier to break into illustration, and specifically publishing, because those actors have to go to those casting calls. And boy, when you hear them talk about how brutal it is, like most of the time they've already chosen who they're going to work with, but they have to do it anyway. You know what I mean? And you're trying to, it's like luck. You're trying to figure out how they want you to read the script. The cool thing that we have going for us is we do us. We make what we make, right? And we try to perfect what our artistic vision is. And then the challenge really is just to get it in front of the right people. And that requires a certain amount of tenacity on your part as someone who is going to fight against that resistance, quote unquote, that they talk about in the war of art.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to fight against that resistance, that little voice that's telling you you're not good enough. This is a waste of time. It's a waste of effort. Who do you think you are? You could be doing these other fun things instead. And you have to believe in yourself and want it bad enough to keep submitting to agents, like you said, to because agents are the gatekeepers now. There's no question about that. Keep submitting to agents, keep making new work, keep working. And the crazy thing is, as artists, the difference, like whenever I analyze this, I'm like, when we went to school, we were taught to work hard so you could get a good job, right? Because then, like, you get the job, and there's this contract there where I show up, I do my work, I get paid, my bills get paid, right?
Yeah.
I do this, and you do that for me, and we don't have that as an artist, and that's a good thing, right? We have we show up and work our guts out as hard as we can, and there's no promise. But if you look at all the successful artists in the world that you admire, they all fought through that. There was a point in time where they fought through that resistance of, you're not good enough, you're not going to make it, no one's going to care about your art, it's a waste of time, you could be doing something else that's more fun, you could be spending this money on something else.
Yeah.
And we make something that we love. That's the key. Make the things that you love, that really inspire you and fulfill your artistic vision, and leave it on the table and let the world decide. And again, and I've talked about this before, that's one of the reasons why I like making my own products is I'm impatient. Part of my personality is very impatient. I want to make something and I want to get busy producing it and selling it to the world and seeing if it's good enough and if they'll like it and if they'll respond to it.
Yeah.
But that that doesn't work for everyone. Some people would much rather, and I would say in my perfect world, I would work on art that I love, and someone else would take it and buy it and pay me lots of money and do all the work in making the product and all the marketing. In my perfect world, pick a salary, $300,000 a year, something like that, right?
Right.
What could be better than that? Now, would that ruin you? In some ways it might. You might lose the hunger.
I'd love the option.
Yeah, please let me find out.
Just give me a shot.
I think one of the things, talking about breaking in to a field is sort of secondary to talking about making interesting work. I think there's the focus that not enough students have is really stepping back and saying, is this interesting?
Right.
I mean, that's one of the biggest critique. We run this thing called How to Fix Your Art. If you haven't seen it, go to SVSLEARN.com. You can compete in it if you like. But we do monthly prompts, and then people come up with solutions to those prompts. And sometimes most of the time, a lot of the times our critique is you just illustrated the thing without making it without elevating it from what it
Yeah.
was. For example, like Will had come up with a concept of hanging by a thread, and some people just drew people literally hanging by a thread instead of really diving into making the work interesting. Like the second I hear, okay, I'm going to make an image for hanging by a thread, the first thing I'm going to think about is, what work am I trying to get with this? What's my goal for doing this? So that's the first step. Am I trying to break into children's books? How can I lean that prompt towards the direction? If I'm going to be a concept artist, I'll lean it that way. But whatever. So give yourself a direction, and then think about 99% of the people are going to paint this in a way that is somebody hanging by a thread. If you paint that same thing, you've done nothing.
Right. Right. So can I continue on with your analogy?
Yeah.
So yeah. So some people go, it looks like they thought, hanging by a thread. So they immediately think of a person hanging by a thread. So they're drawing a person. And if you ask them, what do you really want to draw? What have you always wanted to draw? They might say, I've always wanted to do a really cool hippopotamus. And it's like, okay. So what you're saying is think of the hippopotamus first.
Right.
Now figure out how to make it hanging by a thread in some way, either metaphorically or literally, but you're drawing the thing that you want to draw. Yeah. I had, that was one of the things I would drive home in my UVU classes was I want you guys I come up with these assignments, but I really want them to make them your own. Figure out what you are dying to paint. What genre is it? Is it pirates? Is it furry animals? What is it? Is it, space futuristic stuff?
Right.
Let's make it that first and then fit it into the assignment.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I remember I had an assignment in college. It was do yourself as a self-portrait as an animal. Like try to
such a college assignment.
Capture your features, but as an animal. And so, and I totally like disregarded that. I was developing this story that would eventually become Skyheart, but I had this idea for these animals that have like jetpacks and there's floating islands and all that stuff. And so I did this, like, it wasn't a portrait where you're sitting and there's an animal. I did like a landscape drawing and there's these two animals like suiting up to fly across to the other island. And one of them is me as like a donkey or like a, I forget, it was like a horned animal. I forget what animal I did. And then I wanted to draw a raccoon. So his little sidekick was this raccoon character, right? And my teacher was just like, this was not what I asked at all, but it's so good. And he's like, I guess you get an A. But he's like, class, don't do what he did. This is not the assignment.
I used to tell my students that you could do that anytime. You could disregard the assignment. If you could prove that you made it during class.
Yeah.
And it was the best thing you'd ever done. And like, just amazing. I would give you a good grade, but if you fail,
the idea is though to wrap
hard.
the idea is though to wrap it in there and find some commonality with it. I mean, you don't want to completely like if we have a prompt and you illustrate something totally different, that's not going to win because it's got to be the prompt. I've talked about this before on the podcast, but one of the first times I really did that was in a graphic design lettering class. I didn't want to take it at first, but it was one of the most influential classes I've ever had. But the final assignment was had to do some boring thing with type, and it had to be perfectly drawn. Like there's no computers with this; it's all hand drawn type. And I was illustrating books or trying to get into illustrating books, and so I had this story that I'd written, and I pitched to the teacher and said, "Hey, I want to hand letter this book that I had made for another class." And she was all in and I was all in. And it was a perfect marriage of, I'm doing this other thing, I'm interested in this, but here's what you want from me. And it was a great product. I'm really bummed because I made the cover out of wood. And it was like a one singular book. I love things that are done in small runs. And it was one of the first terms that I was in school, but I made this object of beauty That was my goal. Is it's a product of one, and we stored it in the garage when I was living in Pasadena, and rats ate it.
Oh no.
I could not believe it. I'd love to have that right now. Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Anyway, should we do the next question?
Let's go.
Okay. This comes in from Joe. He says, I tried to make originals, but Sonic paid the bills. He said, I went to Lightbox last year and left super inspired by all the amazing artists and illustrations. Walking through Artist Alley, I noticed the amount of work that was selling was IP that was already popular. Even looking back at my own haul, a good chunk of my prints were Ghibli inspired or pop culture related. Guilty. I get that story and originality matter, but with artist market season coming up, is knowing your audience more important? Should I focus on creating original pieces, or should I play the game and make Sonic fan art for that sweet, sweet cash, or both?
Yeah, I have a lot to think about this because I did the Little Heroes pop culture character line.
Yeah.
The fan art will make you money, but like he basically already said it in the questions. I think that making the original art is going to be the long game.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be the game that, like, if you're ever going to be one of those, create an IP that people make fan art of,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have to work on original stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So people.
So is the answer to do both of those things at once?
People want to be told what to buy. That's the crazy thing, right? Like,
yeah.
Like people want to be told what to buy, and so what are people told to buy? Fan art. Like the average person, when they come home with their haul, they don't want to show their friends and family and office workers like, I went to this convention and look what I got. And it's all like original stuff. And
Right.
people are like, what even is that?
Right.
They want to show off that, look at this cool Sonic I got. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, there's already the relationship you have with these branded characters. So you don't need to explain Batman to anybody. You don't need to explain Sonic to anybody. So
Right. I mean, essentially, you're Marvel and DC and Disney and Pokemon and Nintendo have spent literal billions of dollars advertising their characters so that everybody can know, so they can just be a part of the public consciousness, right? So essentially what you're doing is you're not having to pay for any marketing. You're just getting to reap the rewards of all that marketing that's already been paid, right? And so that's like that's one way to look at it, where a person isn't buying a drawing or print because necessarily you made it, although that might be a component. They're buying it because they have this like Will said, they have this relationship with Captain America or with Mario or something like that, and it's sort of a sandy foundation, because at any point a fan base might ebbs and flows. Like Pokemon becomes really popular and then it doesn't, because then other things captured people's attention, and so now you're like chasing. You're like, oh shoot, my Pokemon prints aren't selling as much anymore, but I noticed this one print of like Peter Pan from Disney sold, and that's because the movie's coming out now. There's this Peter Pan fervor, so now you're going to be chasing the Peter Pan stuff. And really, the thing you need to be working on is developing your own brand. And I think part of that is your IP, but I think the people that do really well in that fan space make something that a Disney or Nintendo or Pokemon or any of these Marvel would never make.
Mm-hmm.
So they're doing, they sort of understand what the fan wants, that it just isn't in the interest for the IP owner to make that thing. So you are offering something unique and special that they could only get from you. But then also people, if you have a really recognizable like brand and look to your stuff, people will actually start being a fan of your version of fan art. Like they may not be a fan of Star Wars, but they really like your art style, and they might pick up, a few pieces because they like your art style. And I think of like ukulele heroes like Jed Henry, where he's and also Bryce. There's a guy named Bryce. I forget his last name. It's podcast fog is what's happening right now. But there's a couple of these artists, and you've seen them at conventions where they have such a really cool, recognizable style, and they've been able to build a fan base around their style, even though they're doing fan art essentially. So I guess the question is, do one for the meal and one for the real, right? You do some art that you could sell, and then you do some art that will be a good portfolio piece that you can that really builds you as a credible, like, creative person who's interested in exploring things and doing new things that haven't been done before. I will say this, I have made a lot of money on Kickstarters from my own IP. And I have sold a couple of books to publishers from my own IP. Missile Mouse, Little Bot and Sparrow, my robots books, my spaceships books, the Antler Boy comic, a lot of my drawings books. Like, all of that stuff is all stuff from my mind and my brain, and it's inspired by the things that I love, and people are here for it. People like it, and so it's a little bit harder road. It's a longer road. I sold a ton of Marvel prints when I first started, and I sold, for every Marvel print I sold one Skyheart print. And so
you 1-to-1, is that what you're saying?
No, for every 10 I would sell one.
10.
And so it was really tempting to just be like, well, I'm just going to keep making these Marvel arts. But what would happen is I would sit down at my computer to, like, design one, and I'd be like, I guess I got to do Black Panther now because that's the movie coming out.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't even know who this character is. So let me do some research on it. And now I got to do Black Widow because everybody loves Black Widow. I'm like, let's see if I can make it authentic, to me. And those prints didn't really sell really well because you could tell my heart and soul wasn't into it.
Right.
So yeah, that's my thoughts there.
Good questions.
Yeah, definitely.
Really good stuff. Also, Lightbox, I didn't go last year, and I kind of missed it. I don't know if I have time to go this year, but it'd be cool. We were kicking around the idea of doing a meetup at, like, a Lightbox or something like that for people who listen to the podcast and people who are members of SVS. So I don't know if there's enough interest in something like that, maybe me and Will go on a little road trip out there and do it, because Lee's going to be in Spain, so he can't make it.
Along with 16 other people that are, maybe some of you are listening right now.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah. All right. Should we wrap it up?
Let's wrap.
Wrap it.
Okay. Thank you for joining us, everybody. Today, SVS is bringing you 3-Point Perspective, which is sponsored by SVS, where Becoming a Great Illustrator starts. Boy, did I really mess that up. Anyway, such a ham-fisted way to say it. Your hosts today are Will Terry, Lee White, and I'm Jake Parker. Will Terry, a.k.a. Wonky Penguin. Lee White, a.k.a. Antonio Blanco. And I'm Jake Parker. Okay, so special thanks to everybody at SVS who just makes this podcast possible and makes the whole SVS machine run. And we just want to shout out these people. So podcast is produced by Daniel Tu, our team manager, Preston Smith, our keeper of the curriculum, Austin Shirtliff, our show notes wrangler, Lily Howell, our chief operations officer, Lisa Fott, and our illustrator, Annalise Black. Now, go draw something. Whew, did it.
You guys want to do stories, or?
I think we started with stories, didn't we?
We did, actually.
And we interjected them all through it.
Okay. All right. We're not going to podcast.
I
all
just
day.
shut it down. I just shut it right down in your face.
I want you to
didn't I?
include that, Daniel.
doing anything.
I want the record to reflect that Jake shot down the stories today.
No, I got a sick kid in the other room. I gotta get.
Yeah.
So
Stuff is
Yeah.
going around, man.
I feel
There's
sorry
I had
for
the
her.
flu all last week. It's terrible.
yeah, I feel like I'm playing flu roulette right now.
Oh, you haven't gotten it?
I haven't gotten it yet.
Dude, Lisa and Emerson got it 2 weeks ago. There's been a 2-week gap. I was like, oh, I'm clear.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. And then all of a sudden I was down.
Dang. So Allison got it last Monday. Penny got it today. It's Thursday. So yeah, there's like a week and a half, week to 2 weeks
It's coming for
incubation.
you,
So we are
buddy. Coming for you.
So we are telling stories.
No, this isn't a story.
I got to tell you about the flu that was like so contagious
Let's hear it.
that our family, when this was like 25 years ago. Anybody,
Grandpappy Will talking about 25-year-old flu.
why not back in my
Grandpappy.
day? I'm telling you what, if someone set foot in our house, their house got destroyed. So we had, think of it like this: everyone in our house, their guts out everywhere, just like lay it, it was just violent. And then we started telling people, don't come over. My wife's sister and her family are like, well, we're just going to drop off this stuff. Don't come in. Oh, nonsense. We'll just say hi.
Yeah.
They're at their house, puking their guts out the next couple of days, right?
Oh my gosh.
And neighbors would come over, and then finally the culmination was we had friends, my wife's other sister coming from California to go mountain biking with us, and we're just getting over it. Where we're like, they were going to stay with us. We're like, you don't want to stay with us. Now this is the guy that if you mess up anything in their house, he like lets you know, sends you a bill. Like if your kid does anything, right? He's like he'll complain about anything that gets, if you touch the wall, he'll like go over there and like,
I know where this story's going.
Did I already tell you this story?
Either you did, or I just am good at predicting Will Terry stories.
We had white, like almost white Berber carpet in our house.
Yeah.
And he ate like spaghetti right before he came to our house, right? And I'm telling you what,
I have heard this one
he
before.
destroyed our carpet. Couldn't make it into the bathroom. Like they insisted, no, we'll stay with you. We'll stay with you. We're like, we're sick. We've been sick. You don't want to get this. In the middle of the night, I hear blah, and that stain never came out. That we had to tear up the carpet.
Dang.
Did we send him a bill? No.
No.
Why? Because we're not like that.
No. You're not like that. But
Should he have offered? Yes.
Probably.
He like
But are you-
exactly what he did. We rented the rug doctor and everything, and he's laying in the bed watching us like clean up the carpet that he destroyed,
Yeah.
And I'm like, and the whole time I'm like, you're the guy.
Are you okay with annoying revenge? That was something Lee talked about 2
Lee's
weeks
petty
ago.
corner. I got some.
Lee's
payback.
petty corner.
Let
Annoying
me ask you
revenge
guys
is
a question, just based on that idea. If your kid goes to somebody else's house and jumps on their trampoline and breaks their arm, who do you think the people that own the trampoline should offer to pay that bill, or is that sort of you're out of luck?
I'm trying to figure out how to answer this so that you're happy with my answer.
This happened to somebody, an acquaintance,
Okay, so
I have
let me
no
get it
dog in the
straight.
fight.
Your kid, my kid, goes to someone else's house, jumping on the tramp, and my kid breaks his or her arm. And should the family offer to pay for that arm because it was their tramp? I don't think so. I mean, like kids, they're at our house, they're at your house, they can get hurt anywhere. Now, if maybe there's some circumstances like if the tramp was put on concrete, so if you fall off, you land on concrete.
Right.
If they didn't take any safety measures at all, I don't know.
That happened to a friend of mine, and we were having that discussion on like who's sort of responsible for it. I mean, I think the kid jumping, whoever's jumping, that's whose parents pay.
Oh,
You know, I just don't think.
yeah.
I mean, we're such a litigious society.
You're saying that you should pay for your own kid if they're
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah,
Like if my
that's
kid's at
kinda-
somebody's house and jumping on the trampoline and he gets hurt,
It's
and
one of
unless the
things.
trampoline was faulty, then that's the gray area for me.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah. Yep. I agree too.
God, you guys are no good. We got to disagree on something. Let's come up. Let's come up with one topic we disagree on. That's not politics.
It's not politics. Do you think it's okay to eat stuff out of the garbage after it's been thrown
Yes.
into it?
There's various degrees to this. It was above the rim, the Seinfeld doily thing, right?
No. Wait, what? Near the trash?
All right.
Let's say, okay, let me ask you this. Let's say someone gets a box of donuts, the last donut gets sort of half eaten or whatever, and someone comes in and is like, oh, I guess we're done with the donuts. They throw the box into the trash.
Right.
Now the box of donuts is in the trash, and there's a quarter of a really yummy donut in the box in the trash. Is it okay to eat that donut out of the trash?
Okay, there's a secondary question. Is my wife home and watching this?
It's totally
If
okay.
wife is not home, I eat the donut. If she is home, I say, oh, that's gross. I would never eat the donut.
There's so many levels to this because the box could be protecting it from other trash that was put on it. And now you have a layer of complexity because
Yeah.
it's not just the box on the very top of the trash. Now there's like banana peels and nasty scrapings of a plate on top of the box, which is still protecting that last morsel of donut.
Mm-hmm.
The donut still hasn't been touched by that stuff.
Well, we're in agreement again.
Well, I'm in disagreement though, actually, because if I really think about it, my wife does have. She's not a germaphobe, but she is very, very sensitive to washing your hands a bunch and being clean around food. Now we don't sit near the trash at a restaurant. We will
Right.
not sit near the where
Right.
that cart is.
Right.
Doesn't even happen. And now I find myself adopting those same kind of
You're
things.
like,
Like I
"She's
look
got a
around for the
point."
cart. So
Okay. Okay. You mentioned the restaurant. Here, I'm going to kick you a really quick scenario. You're at a pizza restaurant, a nice pizza restaurant, right?
Yeah.
And the table behind you, like you guys ordered your own pizza, but you didn't order enough and you're still a little hungry. Table behind you gets up and leaves, and they leave a half a pizza there. Is it, is that trash? Or is that like, could you,
I don't eat off of other tables at a restaurant.
is it trash?
you'll only eat out of your own trash.
Is it trash?
Yeah, that's trash.
Okay, now
I don't know those
You're a
people.
hypocrite, and here's why. If someone in their party was like, "Hey, is that you, Jake? Like I saw you, blah blah blah, on YouTube, da 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 da."
You got to try this pizza. Did you?
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is so good. You
Oh,
got to
you're out
try
of pizza.
some.
Do you want the rest of that?
Well, that's
You say
different.
yes, so you're a hypocrite.
Well, I tell you, man, so much food is wasted like that. I mean, if you're in a restaurant,
I
look
know.
around at how much food is left on the freaking table.
I know.
That should be given to the homeless, in my opinion. I mean, I don't know if that's gross or like
You
cut
know-
off where somebody bit or something. I don't know, but
They used to have in where I grew up in, just outside of Washington D.C. They used to actually have dinners put on by homeless people. They invited these homeless people, and they put on dinners for some of the politician, mayor, whatever's. They talked about this in the Washington Post, where they would show these homeless people would show like how much good food is thrown out and like how it's not like just all mixed in. It's like you can salvage some really good stuff. And they would make a dinner and feed the politicians with it.
Like the politicians knew
oh,
what they were
I
eating.
thought
Yes.
you were going in reverse. They
Yeah,
feed the politicians, and what's left over,
they would,
feed the
they
homeless.
would get
No,
stuff and make a little dinner out of it. And
I love that.
yeah.
That's awesome.
That's good. All right, enough of this.
All right.
See you
Got
see
you
this
guys to
afternoon,
tell
guys.
stories anyway.
Wait, why am I going to see you this afternoon?
I don't know. What do we usually do Thursday
At
afternoon?
2.
Oh yeah, we got that
But it's
meeting.
an hour earlier for us, Jake.
I thought I was done with you.
It's an hour earlier.
Never.
All right.
It's at 2.
It's
Jake.
usually it's at 2 for us now, not 1.
Right.
And it's at 3 for you, right, Lee?
It's a 2.
You
If
don't
it's a
know.
2 for you, it's a 3 for me.
Okay. Sounds good. Bye guys.
Bye.